What the football is up? It's touchdown season. It's reception season. It's interception season. It's sack season. It's freaking good to be back season. Talking CFB in the SEC. We're back. SEC Recap Podcast. It is back. Been gone a while. But I love college football too much to stay away. Probably down to one show a week for the time being. But I wanted to get back here in week 2. We're going to talk power rankings. We're going to talk week 1, wins, losses, matchups headed into week 2. You're listening to the SEC Recap Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Warren. Had awesome growth in the first season of this pod last year. Broke 300 subs on YouTube. Looking to grow those numbers this time around. Don't make a dime off this, but if you want to donate to the pod, QR codes right up there. I'll leave it up there. You can follow me on Twitter at SEC Recap, and all those links and stuff will be in the description if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you get your pod, wherever you prefer to chug your podcasts, you can find me there. All right, let's dig in. I want to start with power rankings coming out of week 1 into week 2. Now, if you're just joining us, it's been a while. If you're listening for the first time, one of the last episodes I put out related to football was kind of my 2023 season predictions. I'm not going to go rehash all of those, but I encourage you to go listen to them because I kind of talk some early season narratives a little bit and predicting some of those tougher road game matchups between some of these SEC squads. So go give that a listen because a lot of that is going to predicate my takes headed into this season. So let me pull up my screen here. There we go. So just on my website here, secrecap.com. I also put this out on my Twitter. So my power rankings exiting week 1 into week 2. I've got Georgia at the top, sitting at that number 1 spot. No reason not to have them there, in my opinion. 2-time back-to-back national champions. They get the benefit of the doubt headed into this season. They got the easiest path to a three-peat. And honestly, I know people were kind of talking. They kind of let UTM hang around in the first half, week 1. Don't care. It's nonsense. They're rolling until proven otherwise. Number 2. Now, here's where a lot of people preseason were putting LSU, defending West champs, although they were a 9-3 West champ. I never had them there. Go back and listen to my early 2023 predictions. I never really was going to have LSU at that number 2 spot. They still have a lot to prove. Brian Kelly's got a lot to prove, in my opinion. So I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, biggest narratives, right? Alabama doesn't have a quarterback. Who's their quarterback? Quarterback controversy. Well, it sure looked like they had a quarterback. Jalen Milroe, athletic freak. I think they're going to be just fine at quarterback. Now, how does the rest of the team stack up around that? Is it championship caliber? I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of football to play. I think Texas will be a good test here in week 2, but I think we could put that quarterback controversy nonsense to rest. Tied a strong number 2 in my power rankings. Number 3, Tennessee Vols. They were number 2 in the East. Whooped Clemson in the Orange Bowl. They were a top 10 team to finish the season. They get the benefit of the doubt. They look great in their season opener. That defense looked so much better. I'm not going to say they looked elite. It was Virginia after all, but my goodness, they looked more athletic. They looked deeper. They rotated a lot of dudes in and out. They looked stronger. They looked faster. So if that defense can even be a top 50 defense this year, with that offense, I think Joe Milton's going to be great. They will be just fine. No problem putting Tennessee at the number 3 spot. Number 4, I got Texas A&M Aggies, still don't know what they're going to be. They look great. Golly, Connor Wegman looked awesome week one. Who'd they play? New Mexico, 52-10. Wegman threw for 236. They got just a freaking dudes at receiver, man. How's the Bobby Petrino thing going to work out? Looks good so far. Again, a lot of football to play. We'll kind of see Texas A&M, man. They could be in that top three, possibly even top two. I think the Tide has to travel to College Station, so we'll see. Texas A&M could be the real deal this year, but after a disastrous 2022, I got to see it before I'm going to believe it. A lot of people really high on my number 5 team, Ole Miss, the Ole Miss Rebels. Um, I'm fine with them there in that top 5. I don't know that I could put them 4 or 3. Jackson Dart looked great. They got one of the deepest QB rooms in the SEC for sure, maybe in the country. But I said in my 2023 predictions that it was going to be Jackson Dart's job to lose. Looks like I was dead on that one. He looks great. They hung a ton of points on Mercer. It was Mercer. But anytime you put 73 on any team, you're balling out. So Ole Miss at number 5. Number 6, Kentucky Wildcats. Offensive line does look better. I got to see a little bit more from Devin Leary. He didn't look bad at all. But, new offense, new team, new coordinator. Sort of new coordinator. Cohen's back. I got to see a little bit more from Kentucky to put them in the top 5. But, I mean, nothing wrong with what they did. Was it Ball State versus Ball State, 44-14. I think they're on the right track for sure. Number 7 in my rankings, Arkansas Razorbacks. Boy, KJ Jefferson looks awesome. My favorite play was when one of the linebackers came in to make a play on him, Western Carolina, and just bounced right off of KJ, and he kind of rolled out a little bootleg or something to the left and hit a receiver just a few yards down the sideline. I like Arkansas. They got a tough schedule, always tough on the road, especially in the SEC West. But I'm high on the Hogs right now. Okay, my number 8 pick. I got to take a sip of coffee for this one. Okay. Number 8, I'm putting the LSU Tigers. A lot of people were really high. They were drinking that purple Kool-Aid down in Baton Rouge. A lot of national media saying that this was it. They were going to contend for a national championship this year. Behind Georgia, they were going to be the number 2 team, and I was just never there. I think they're a great team. I think they're a deep team. I think they're a talented team, but they are still reliant, I think, on too many portal players at key positions. Number 1, Jaden Daniels. I think Daniels is a great QB, but he's the downfield passing, I don't know, man. It's just not all there. I think Nussmeier is a little bit stronger there. We saw a little bit of it versus Georgia when they were just having to chuck the ball down the field after Daniels had to exit that game. I think Nussmeier just gives them a little bit more down the field capability. That Florida State defense was so athletic, so dynamic. They were all over the field. LSU could just not get anything going. And then defensively, look, I know Travis Hunter is a great quarterback, but LSU's got dudes on defense. What were they doing? And LSU they looked outcoached. They looked tired. They looked tired in the third quarter, fourth quarter. They looked gassed. Florida State just outplayed them. I know it's a top 10 team, but LSU, I mean, God, you were like number 4, number 5 in the country, man. You just expected so much more from that. Kind of embarrassing. Is it over? No. Is their season done? No. But is their margin for error razor slim? Yeah. You don't really have you don't have room for 2 SEC losses, man. I don't think you're going to sneak to the top of the SEC West with 2 conference losses this year. That you got lucky last year, but you got to go to Tuscaloosa this year. You got to play a really good A&M team this year. I think we'll see a good Ole Miss team this year. I think a good Arkansas team this year. I mean, You got your work cut out for you if you're LSU, man. It's not over. It's not over. You got all the talent in the world, still turning around. All the parallels from last year and that opening season loss, right? But you don't have a ton of room for mistakes. So you got to turn it around. You got to turn it around fast. I'm not putting LSU, based on what I've seen with the eye test, even near the top 5 in the SEC right now, though. I got to see a big turnaround before they can move. But it's week 1, week 2. Things are still really volatile. Number 9, I got Auburn. I think they look great in their opener. Love the way they used Robbie Ashford in the red zone. That's what Hugh Freeze is good at, is maximizing talent. They're still reliant on a ton of transfer portal talent. But I thought Peyton Thorne was, there's reasons to be optimistic there. The way they're using Robbie Ashford and his athleticism in the red zone, kind of in that 06, 08 Tim Tebow style style role. Reasons to be optimistic for Auburn. You know, can they steal a win that they're not supposed to? We'll see. Because there's still some question marks there, but a lot of reasons to feel a lot better about the Auburn Tigers this year compared to the last 2 seasons under the former guy. At number 10, I got Mississippi State, the Bulldogs. Now, when I posted these power rankings, I got a comment. Hold on, sip of coffee. I got a comment that everybody always hates on State. I think that was on my Facebook SEC recap page. Everybody's hating on State. They get no love, but they're going to prove everybody wrong. Listen, I'm not hating on State. I got actually some personal ties to Mississippi State. Believe it or not. Got no hate or no disrespect against Mississippi State at all. But new head coach, new offensive system. It's not the air raid anymore. It's a new offensive attack. They're running the ball more. Zach Arnett's a defensive guy. Can the offense kind of match what he wants to do defensively and vice versa? Is it going to be more complementary than it has been in the past? Anytime you're installing a new system, which is dramatically different than what a lot of these guys have played in for the past 2, 3, sometimes even 4 years, you have to be hesitant, okay? Or not hesitant, but you have to take everything day by day. Can they be good? Yes. Will they be great this year? I don't think so. And that's not a knock on them. It's really not. I mean, they torched Southeastern Louisiana 48-7. Will Rogers still threw for 227. You're not going to see the same passing numbers from Will Rogers. You're going to see more of that rushing attack. It's a tough road to hoe in the SEC, man, with a first-year coach. I think, worry about getting through the season, getting to a bowl game, look good, finish good, play hard, win the games you're supposed to win, and be competitive in the games that you're not favored. They've just got a lot to prove. Mississippi State has a lot to prove. I absolutely do not hate or have no disrespect towards the Bulldogs. It's tough. Their situation is tough. All right, number 11, I got the Mizzou Tigers. A lot of people really high on them for that defense. I think Brady Cook showed a lot of promise last year, way more athletic, I think, than I gave him credit for early in the season last year, and a lot of people gave him credit for early in the season last year. But he looks great. That defense is flying around. I think they could give people a lot of problems this year. But Eli Drinkowitz has been, 5-7, 6-6. Like, that's just kind of where he is as a coach. And until they have an 8-4 season, I'm just not going to buy that they can still stack up talent for talent, man for man against some of these other teams in the SEC when we know how much deeper and more talented some of those other rosters are. Like, stack Missouri up against Georgia. I know they had that fluky close game in Columbia last year, but that was a one-off. That's not what we saw from them week in, week out. We saw them get blown out in other games versus Tennessee. Stack them up against Ole Miss, against Kentucky. You have to start to get toward the middle of these rankings before you find teams that Missouri kind of on par with talent wise. So for those reasons, we're putting these teams on a neutral field. It's tough for me to have them in that like 6, 7, 8 range. I feel way better having them in that 9, 10, 11 range for now. For now, like I said, these are volatile. These could change. No hate on the Tigers. Just think they're lacking talent and depth uh, on all sides of the ball compared to a lot of other teams. Think that defense is great, though. I think that defense can really cause some problems this year. At number 12, and uh, I know I'm about to make a lot of people really mad with these final rankings. At number 12, I got Vanderbilt. So if you're listening and you don't know who my 13 and 14 is, you can go to secrecap.com or head on over to YouTube and pull up these rankings if you want to go ahead and see. But I got Vanderbilt at number 12. Reason is they played 2 weeks. I know Hawaii was a lot closer than a lot of people wanted it to be. And their game, let's see, who did they play in week 2? Alabama A&M. But they did handle Alabama A&M 47-13. Offense looks great. That defense is not good. So they're going to have to be in some shootouts this year. They may be able to handle that, though, depending on the matchup. I think they got to go do it against, who is it, Wake Forest this week? Let me see here. Sorry, this is great podcast. Yeah, they got to go to Wake Forest. So I know Sam Hartman's not there anymore, but if they have to be in a shootout with a better team like Wake Forest, I just don't know that Vandy's defense is going to be able to hold up. But I got them at 12 because they have won 2 games. They are technically first in the SEC East. And it's because what I saw from these last 2 teams gave me no optimism coming out of last year or coming out of the offseason that I saw. Number 13, South Carolina, the Gamecocks. And I know Gamecocks fans are passionate. I've gotten into it with some Gamecocks fans on Twitter. But listen, man, they were flying high. They caught lightning in a bottle coming out of 2022. Huge win, top 10 win over Tennessee, back-to-back with a win over Clemson on the road at Clemson. Then played a pretty good game against Notre Dame. Played a pretty good bowl game against Notre Dame. They lost, but like they were in that game. It was a competitive game. But man, the Kool-Aid being drunk in Columbia, South Carolina in the offseason, getting rid of Sat, bringing in Dow Loggins. I never thought the Dow Loggins hire was an impressive hire at all. I don't think a lot of people did. I know some Gamecocks fans weren't even crazy about that hire. But, off-season hype. Spencer Rattler's having the best camp of his life. They're going to continue that momentum out of the 2022 season into the 2023 season, but they had massive losses along the offensive line. They had a lot of other offensive attrition, players transferring. You got a converted quarterback playing running back now. There were just so many gigantic question marks on the offensive side of the ball this year. And we saw all of that exposed against not a great defense in North Carolina. I think North Carolina is a good team. God, Drake May, I've never really watched him play. He's the real deal. He's legit. He does the most with the talent that's around him. I totally get the NFL hype and the Heisman hype for Drake May. And Spencer Rattler played really well. For being under that much pressure, Spencer Rattler, like throwing for like 300 yards, 350 yards, in a 2-touchdown loss, but they just got nothing going on the ground. Offensive line gave up 9 sacks. N-I-N-E, 9 sacks. I don't care who you are. You cannot play competitive football. You cannot play competitive Power 5 football. You certainly cannot play competitive SEC football when your offensive line is giving up 9 sacks. Look at Kentucky's O-line last year. Levis spent the majority of the season on his ass because of that offensive line. I know, I know Shane Beamer came out. He loves to argue with the media. I wish he wouldn't. I wish he would just, if he coached his team as much as he worried about what the media says, the offensive line might not be that bad. But, his whole spiel about, If you're ragging on the offensive line now, make sure to give them credit when they're playing their butts off later. Dude, get out there and coach them, man, because that's what they need. They don't need to hear you on the media like talking them up, being the culture coach or whatever. Like, they need real coaching. They need real discipline. They need real talent. Maybe they do get better. God, I hope they get better, because they can't get any worse. That's for sure. And I'm sorry if you're a South Carolina fan, it makes you mad, but like, what did you see? Like, outside of Spencer Rattler playing well, despite that, like, you're just not going to win games with that kind of O-line play, not in the SEC. Sorry. And one more thing. Everybody's talked about it. I got to mention it. Coming out in that press conference, and I know this was taken a little out of context. I get it. But his whole thing about saying the one thing that he was disappointed in was the chain gang being late for them trying to kick an onside kick because they were hitting a hot dog. Dude, that is Butch Jonesian loser talk. Like, you need to not say stuff like that. As soon as you get combative and defensive in the media, you have nothing to gain from that. And the more defensive and combative you get, the more insular you become. You don't bring anybody to your side by talking like that. Talk your guys up, coach them up, let the media and people like me who podcast to, audiences of 300 say whatever we want to say. Go coach your team. Don't worry about what everybody else says. All right. Gamecocks got to get better, but they are better than my number 14 team, the Billy Napier coached Florida Gators that we saw get embarrassed on the road at Utah. I know Utah is a top 14 team, but they had a walk-on quarterback who on his opening play threw a 70-yard touchdown bomb. Okay. Florida's offense looked sluggish, slow. There was no rhythm, no run game. Graham Mertz looked out of rhythm. Defense looked slow, sluggish, out of rhythm. Dude, coaching errors, the two number 3s on special teams. Like, God, man, sloppy. I'm going to say the same thing about Florida that I said about LSU. Is the season over? No. But is your margin for error and your prove it factor razor thin? Yes, it is. Florida's got Tennessee in 2 weeks. Vols look good against Virginia. Their defense looked good. Their offense looked good. Their run game looked super good. You cannot play sluggish, slow offense against the Tennessee team that's coming into the swamp. And I know Tennessee's track record in the swamp is abysmal. I've seen subpar Florida teams with second-string quarterbacks beat, on paper, far superior Tennessee teams. I don't know that environment factor is going to give you much this year. This is a Tennessee team that has a lot of players that beat you in Neyland. This is a lot of guys that don't know Tennessee losing to Florida. A lot of these guys only know Tennessee beating Florida. So that's their expectation. And if you're wounded and wailing when they roll into town, they're going to make you pay. So is it over? No. But God, they got to pull it together, and they got to pull it together fast. So that's it. That's my power rankings, guys. Let's dig into the week 2 matchups. We have, in the order of games, Vanderbilt headed into Wake Forest. And I think what I want to do here is just kind of do a little pick 'em, just a straight up pick 'em, and maybe a pick 'em against the spread. Just for fun. I'm not betting here. We're not putting any money on anything. Nothing like that. But just to kind of give a little different take on the games. We'll kind of do a pick and then a pick against the spread. So we got Vanderbilt going to Wake. That's a 10 a.m. Let's see here. I guess that's 10 a.m. Eastern, maybe 10 a.m. Central. I think this is in Central. So it'd be 11 a.m. Central. The line is Wake -10, over under 55. Wake Forest is heavily favored. I like Vandy's offense, like I said. But at home, at Wake Forest, I think Wake gets it done here. And I actually like I ah, Vandy's defense is just not good. Playing on the road, I think give me Wake to cover the 10. I'll take Wake to cover the 10. Um, yeah. All right. Next up, we got Ball State going to Georgia. I think Georgia is this is an 11 a.m. kick. I think Georgia is favored by like 42. This is great podcasting while I'm pulling this up. If you're watching it on YouTube, I got the schedules pulled up here. Yeah, Georgia basically by however many they want. It's at Georgia. Um, the over under is 52. Georgia's favored by 42. Give me Georgia by however many they want. I'll take Georgia to cover the 42. All right, next up we got Eastern Kentucky at Kentucky. This is a 2 p.m. kick. Kentucky, there's not even odds on this game according to ESPN. Uh, give me Kentucky by 30. I'll take Kentucky by 30 at least. Next we got one that I think is super interesting. Ole Miss at Tulane. Tulane, a super hot team coming out of the 2022 season. They did have that big win over USC in I believe it was the Cotton Bowl. So Ole Miss actually favored on the road at Tulane, which they should be. But that line is 7 and a hook. Um, you know, I like the way Ole Miss's offense is playing. I think it's going to come down to Ole Miss just getting the stops on that Tulane offense. But I like Ole Miss on the road. 7.5 is a really good line. I think I'm going to lean over under 67. Good Lord. Give me Tulane to actually cover. I think this one could be close. I think this one could be really close. So I will take Tulane to cover the 7.5. I think about a touchdown or less is where I would have this one. Really great SEC matchup here. Texas A&M going on the road to Miami. This is a 2:30 p.m. kick. Texas A&M slight dog at Miami. Well, according to ESPN's FPI, Caesars has them favored by 4. I like Texas A&M in this one. They should be able to handle Miami if what we saw from Connor Wegman kind of carries over and all that talent they got on the defensive side of the ball shows up. So actually give me Texas A&M to cover this one. An over under of 51, Texas A&M by 4. I think they could win this one by a touchdown. No prob. Next up, we got Kent State at Arkansas. Arkansas, of course, the favorite. Line on Arkansas minus 38, over under 58.5. Arkansas should have no problem here. It's at home. 38's a lot of points, though. I think I might lean. I know Kent. That offense is weird. It's that up-tempo offense, like that kind of Baylor style offense. I think, right? I don't know. I don't know if Arkansas will cover that. Give me Kent State to cover. I know that might be a weird one, but give me Kent State to cover there. Next up, we got Tennessee opening at home against Austin Peay. Their home weekend was at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. I was actually up there for that game. Got to see the Joe Milton debut with my own 2 eyes. He looked great. Got to see a little bit of the 5-star guy, Nico, play. Like I said, that defense was flying around. 4 p.m. kick here for Tennessee. There's not even odds on this game. Tennessee should have no problem handling the Governors. I think they'll win by as many as they want to. Maybe Austin Peay gets a field goal or a touchdown against the bench late in the fourth quarter, but I expect to see a lot of the depth players from Tennessee in this one, and they probably run up the score into the 50s or 60s. Uh, Game of the day, really here. Texas at Alabama. We saw Alabama go on the road to Texas last year. Alabama, the strong favorite according to ESPN's analytics. They're my favorite in this game. They're favored by a touchdown. I think this will be a good test for them. I know Alabama owes a lot of its recent offensive success to the Sark years there in Tuscaloosa, but I'm just not sure Texas really stacks up against Alabama, especially not at Bryant Denny. I like Alabama in this one, and I like them by more than a touchdown. So I will take Alabama to cover that spread. Then we got Middle Tennessee going on the road to Missouri. I like the Missouri defense. Um, Strong favorites in this one, according to ESPN. 89% favored to win. The line is minus 21 for Mizzou. Middle Tennessee is one of those teams that can sneak up and bite you if you're not looking. But with Missouri's defense playing as well as they are and offensive looking pretty good as well, I don't think the Tigers should struggle. I'm not sure about that 21 points, though. With an over-under of 48, I think I like Middle Tennessee to cover the 3 scores there. Next up, we got Grambling State going on the road to Baton Rouge to play the LSU Tigers. This is definitely a get-right game for Brian Kelly and the Tigers. It's a 6:30 p.m. kick. I know that Brian Kelly will probably talk this up and say, yeah, it's a really good team, blah, blah, blah. I don't think anybody expects this to actually be a game for LSU. LSU buy as many as they want. They need to work out those kinks on offense, maybe get Nussmeier some play here. I would expect to see a lot more of him, and then figure out some stuff on the defense to get Harold Perkins involved. McNeese at Florida. That's a 6:30 p.m. kick as well. This is a big-time get-right game for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. There's not even a line on this game, so the Gators should handle them. It's in the swamp on their home turf. We'll see if they can get that run game going, work out some of those coaching and procedural errors that plagued them against Utah. Florida by as many as they want here against McNeese. Sneaky good matchup. Arizona coming to Mississippi State. Do not think that the Wildcats are ready for them cowbells. Mississippi State, a strong favorite here, but this is one of those games that's kind of darned if you do, darned if you don't. I say that because Mississippi State is favored to win, and that's the expectation. They're a 9-point favorite at home against a 1-0 Arizona Wildcats team. But you're expected to win this game. You're the SEC team. You're the home team. You got that home field advantage, that great home field advantage at Davis Wade. You're expected to win that game. So if you win, it's kind of like, yeah, that's what we want you to do. It's what you're supposed to do. But if you lose or it's closer than that 9 points, all it brings is scrutiny, right? So if you're the Bulldogs here, you got to come out with a statement win. You got to give Zach Arnett a statement win. And I think they can do that. So I actually like Mississippi State better than the 9 points here with an over-under of 60.5. Give me the Bulldogs by at least 10. I think they can cover by at least 10. All right, next up, we got a get-right game. Yet again, another 6:30 p.m. kick. This is Furman at South Carolina. Shane Beamer kind of talking up Furman. They were the only team, I believe, out of South Carolina to win a game in opening weekend. This is a team that has a lot of experience playing football, but this is not a team that should challenge in any meaningful aspect an SEC team like South Carolina. So South Carolina is, according to ESPN's FPI, 93% favorites to win. There's not even odds on this game. South Carolina at home in Williams-Brice for a night game should handle Furman by as many as they want. What happens on that offensive line? I think they need to work out some of those issues. I think they need to get the run game going a little bit more. Spencer Rattler, Xavier Leggett looked really great. Get DeCarry and Joyner going. Like, get the run game going. Open up a little bit more stuff. This is your time to work that out because where do they go in week 3? On the road to Georgia. You got to get some stuff right this week if you're South Carolina. It's Furman. This is your chance. I want to see him do it. Then we got the Pac-12 after dark game. Auburn Tigers having to go on the road to Cal. It's a 9:30 p.m. Central Time kickoff. My God. I won't be staying up for that one, but if you're an Auburn fan, best of luck to you. I'll see you on the other side. Could be a sneaky good game. ESPN's analytics has Cal favored 55% to 45, but Caesars likes Auburn by -6.5. So I think this could be a pretty close game. I know a lot of Auburn fans out there think they should walk in and handle this, but a night game while you're traveling to the West Coast, that's late to be playing if you're Auburn. That's a long time to travel out there and be up with your biorhythm kind of being off a little bit or pushed back 2 or 3 hours. So all those factors considered, Auburn should win this game. I think it is going to be closer than a touchdown. I like Cal to cover that 6.5. I think this could come down to a field goal or maybe 2. So, guys, there you have it. We are back. It is good to be back, headed into week 2. I'll be back here with you every single week to kind of recap the action and talk the upcoming matchups. Like I said, I've got one foot in the working world, and I'm actually working on a second master's now. So I've got one foot in the school world as well. So I'm working more than full time plus school on top of it. So those game previews and the SEC matchups of the week, like I was doing last season, those might not happen. But if I can sneak in a bonus episode every now and then, especially if there's a big time SEC game, I'll try to do that. But be on the lookout for me once a week, typically around middle to late week, Thursday, Friday, to recap the action, talk power rankings, talk week 2 matchups. I'm here for it. Real quick, follow me on Twitter at SEC Recap. Donate to the pod. I've left it up there if you're watching on YouTube. Those links will be in the description. Check out all my content on secrecap.com. Like, subscribe, get notified for new episodes each week. I'm always thankful to those of you on YouTube. That's where we've had the most explosive growth. So I want to keep that going. Share on Facebook, share on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, wherever. And if you just prefer to chug your podcast rather than get them in video format, you can do that through Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, anywhere you prefer to get your podcasts. Guys, thank you so much. Can't wait for week 2 action. I'll be back here next week to recap it all on the SEC Recap. Peace.